Thank you for joining us for what I think you will agree is a piece of country music history. I think Johnny Russell said it best when he described the people about to assemble in this room as representatives of the golden age of country music. So settle back in an easy chair and imagine that these legends have just paid a visit to your living room. They're here to have fun and let you go behind the scenes and share the stories of their lives just as they lived them. Welcome to this, the first of 4 volumes of Country's Family Reunion.
Circle, be unbroken, by and by, Lord, by and by. There's a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. I was standing by my window on a cold and cloudy day, when I saw the hearse come rolling just to carry my mother away. Will the circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by? There's a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. Lord, I told the undertaker, please drive slow, for this body you are holding, Lord, I hate to see her go. Will the circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by? There's a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky.
Till I follow close behind her, trying to hold up and be brave. But I could not hide my sorrow when they laid her in her grave.
Will the circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by? There's a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky.
Went back home, Lord, my home was lonesome, 'cause my mother, she was gone. All my brothers, sisters crying, what a home, so sad and lone.
Will the circle be unbroken by and by, Lord, by and by? There's a better home awaiting in the sky, Lord, in the sky. In the sky, Lord, in the sky.
I love those old songs like that, and they're fun to sing. Mr. Dickens, you were certainly dressed up fancy today.
I'd still make it any other way. Wait a minute. Bill, I protest.
Protest
He come
what?
out here in his stage costume, and we were told to wear just plain casual.
That's casual for him.
Wait a minute.
He's a star.
This is my stage for the day. I can see.
You don't really mow the yard in that.
The light comes on in the refrigerator when I open it, and I take a bow. So there you go. No ham about me.
How many years you been singing now?
I've been trying for a long time, Bill. I think about 63 years.
Wow. Started before you was born, didn't you?
Well, I was in high school when I started. Yeah. But I was in high school a long time, too.
I don't know if everybody knows this or not. Did y'all know Jimmy Dickens played basketball in high school?
No. Yes, I did.
Yeah.
On which team?
Yep. You had to play 16 quarters a year to earn a letter, which was a circle on your sleeve. And I got 3 of those boogers on my sweater.
Was that when they put the baskets on the floor?
You're thinking about croquet, that game.
I think we need a song from Little Jim.
That's good, yeah.
Now, y'all, wait a minute, don't rush me. I gotta put my thing on here. I can't hit a lick without my thing on here. Now, that's it. What song?
Hey, what are you gonna sing for us?
I don't know. Whatever he kicks off back there.
Whatever it is, it'll be good. Which one are we doing? Old Cold Tater?
That'd be all right.
Sounds good to me.
How much of it do you want?
Much as you want to give us.
Ooh, let's see.
The whole tater.
The whole tater. That takes a while. Let's go.
Let's go.
Sing as much as
When I was a little boy, around the table at home, I remember very well when company would come. I would have to be right still until the whole crowd ate. My mama always said to me, Jim, take a tater and wait. And taters never did taste good with chicken on the plate, but I had to eat them just the same. And that is why I look sad. I have these beauty ways, because I always had to take an old cold tater away. One more. It's my national anthem. Yeah, I thought that I'd starve to death before my time would come. All that chicken they would eat and just leave Jim the mud. The feet and neck are all that's left upon the china plate. It makes you pretty darn weak to take an old cold tater away. And taters never did taste good with chicken on the plate, but I had to eat them just the same. And that is why I look sad. I have these beauty ways, because I always had to take an old cold tater away. And then the preachers, they would come to stay a while with us. I would have to slip around or raise a little fuss, in fear that I might spill the beans or break a china plate. My mama always said to me, Jim, take a tater and wait. And taters never did taste good with chicken on the plate, but I had to eat them just the same. And that is why I look sad. I have these beauty ways, because I always had to take an old cold tater and wait. How many times have we done that?
You're the only man I know that you got your nickname from the song. You've been called Tater ever since that came out.
You know who gave me that nickname?
Who did?
Hank Williams Sr.
Really?
Yes, sir. Walking down the street one day, and he says, Tater, let's go in the store here and buy something. I've been Tater ever since.
Isn't it true that he wrote Hey Good Looking for you?
Yes, he did.
Well, not for you, not because you was good looking, but I mean, he wrote the song.
we were riding along in an airplane with Minnie Pearl and her husband, Henry Cannon, on our way to Wichita, Kansas. He said, Tater, you need a hit song. I said, Lord knows that. I need a hit song. He said, I'm going to write you one. Get a piece of paper. So Minnie Pearl gave us a piece of paper, and I had a pencil, and he started writing, "Hey, good looking," and in 30 minutes, it was done. He said, "Now record that, that'll make you a hit." And I intended to do that. A week later, we were in the old studios at WSM for the Friday Night Frolic. They said, "Tater, I cut your song today." And I said, "Much obliged, Harm. I appreciate that. What a friend." Oh, my.
A little bit of we could, yes.
About E flat?
E flat?
This is a rehearsal, folks. If anyone could find the joy that true love brings, a girl and boy, we could, you and I. If anyone could ever say their true love was here to stay, we could, you and I. When you're in my arms, I know you're happy to be there. Just as long as I'm with you, I'm happy anywhere. If anyone could pray each night to thank the Lord that all is right, we could, you and I. Captain was supposed to play this. When you're in my arms, I know you're happy to be there. Just as long as I'm with you, I'm happy anywhere. If anyone could pray each night to thank the Lord that all is right, we could, you and I.
You are everybody's favorite ballad singer. Absolutely.
I never claimed to be a singer.
Well, you are.
I worked 63 years trying to be an entertainer, and I still ain't funny. You know what I mean?
You ain't the only one dressed up today. I want everybody to get an eye full of Jim Ed Brown down there. The
Well,
coat
he
and
always
tie.
looks like that.
Now wait a minute. You're not gonna put me after Jimmy Dickens.
Yes, sir.
I wouldn't give that spot to my cleaners.
You know, one time we were in Mr. Moeller's office. You remember Mr. Moeller?
Yeah.
When he managed an awful lot of talent here in town, and I was doing Raggedy Ann on the road, the little recitation with the doll, and Waylon Jennings was on the show one day, and so he came back in, and we was up and standing around in the lobby one day talking, and he said, "Mr. Moeller, don't ever put me back on the show with that man right there." And he said, "Why?" He said, "Who can follow a midget dragging a doll around on the stage?"
It's your turn, Jim Ed. Hey, when you made the
Take a
record,
little short break here, you know.
When you made the record Papa Top, I know you do it on the stage. You kind of. How did you do that on the record?
Let me tell you a little story about Papa Top. Nat Stuckey wrote Papa Top. He sent a tape of a bunch of songs, well, an acetate back then, of a bunch of songs to Chet Atkins. And Chet, I was in his office one day, and Chet said, I don't have time to listen to all of these songs. Would you take this home and listen to it and see if you find anything, you know, in there you think is good? So I went and listened, and I found Papa Top. But Nat was doing it the way he did it, anyway, I went back and told Chet, and Chet picked up the phone and called him, and he said, Chet, you can't do that because that's my next single. Let me tell you something. Have you ever prayed that somebody wouldn't have a hit? I did. But it was a good song. Anyway, we went in and recorded it. And Felton Jarvis, it was his idea to use the pop, you know, the can thing. And I promise you.
Got that idea.
I don't know. Not that we've ever done that before, you know. But that was back whenever the cans were first coming out and all of that. You know?
Was that a real can on the record?
Oh yeah. What we did, we went out, we did the song, and then he came up with that idea. So we went down to the local little market, and we bought a couple of. We said, well, we're not going to be able to get it, you know, first 3 or 4 times. It's going to take us a few times.
Sure.
So we bought.
It was Coca-Cola.
Well, actually. But anyway, we got it the first time. They set the microphone up, and the engineer had everything set, and the first can. So there was a whole bunch of them went to waste.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
They're probably still sitting over there.
Hey, you ever had a room full of 30-something people all go pop at one time?
No, but
and
let me
then
tell you something. There's some awfully talented people here. I don't know that I want to sing in front of all of them, you know, and especially follow the Dickens.
You got to. You got to.
Jimbo Jenkins was his name. You forgot.
Yeah, I forgot.
We worked up a little thing about 5 years ago. I started singing that song, and he said, how did I get in the Hall of Fame? Well, that wasn't his exact words, but...
We're walking down through the airport in Las Vegas. He said, Jimbo Dickens was his name. I said, how did he ever get in the Hall of Fame?
Fellas, if you'll hit me about the key of E or something or another, I'll give you a little bit.
Yeah, everybody in here.
Everybody ready?
That's a bunch of weak pops.
Sound like the brewery blew up.
I don't believe it ever been a hit, boys.
Give us the chord again.
No one in this room's ever popped the
Nobody
top,
is there.
So you just have to give us a...
Have to give you something.
Yeah, we have to try.
Here we go.
Okay. Papa Top again. I've just got time for one more round. Set 'em up, my friend. And I'll be gone, and you can let some other fool sit down. I'd like for you to listen to a joke I heard today from a woman who said she was through and calmly walked away. I tried to smile and did a while, but it felt so out of place. Did you ever hear of a clown with teardrops streaming down his face? Papa Top again. I think I'll have another round. Set 'em up, my friend. And I'll be gone, and you can let some other fool sit down. Home to me is misery, and here I'm wasting time, 'cause a row of fools on a row of stools is not what's on my mind. But then you see her leaving me is not what I prefer. So it's either here, watching Dell, or home, remembering her. Here we go. Papa Top. I think I'll have drove another round, another one, my friend. And I'll be gone, and you can let some other fool sit down.
Hey, you know, my grandfather was a Methodist preacher. He lived to be 88 years old, and he rode the circuits in the North Georgia mountains. He'd ride on his horse or an old buggy, horse-drawn carriage, and preach at one church on one Sunday and another church on another Sunday. He said something to me on his deathbed, really. He never got out of the hospital. But he said the most amazing thing to me, and I think everybody in this room can relate to this. He said, you know, Billy, he said, I don't know much about the music business that you're in, but he said, I know one thing. He said, you're in a position to reach more people with one song than I've reached with every sermon that I've ever preached. Boy, that's a responsibility for all of us to remember. Join with me. The words are in the book there if you need them. And let's do that old song called Where Could I Go But to the Lord.
Yes.
Living below in this old sinful world, hardly a comfort can afford. Striving alone to face temptation sore. Where could I go but to the Lord?
Everybody now.
Where could I go? Oh, where could I go? Seeking a refuge for my soul, needing a friend to save me in the end. Where could I go but to the Lord? Neighbors are kind, I love them, everyone. We get along in sweet accord. But when my soul needs manna from above, where could I go but to the Lord? Where could I go? Oh, where could I go? Seeking a refuge for my soul, needing a friend to save me in the end. Where could I go but to the Lord? Where could I go but to the Lord?
Thank y'all. That's fun. Hey, before we do the next song, Grandpa Jones has an impersonation he wants to do for us.
An impersonation?
Who you going to impersonate?
Porter Wagner.
Oh,
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah. You hadn't got high on the inside of yours.
What'd you
though.
say?
You don't have high written on the inside of your jacket.
No, I don't. I don't know what else he's got. A whole lot.
Jimmy Brown, you've got an old gospel song to do for us.
yeah, I love gospel. I was raised on gospel. My mother always made us get up, you know, and go to church. I can't raise that up, can I? But I'd have to harness the mules up, and we would get in the wagon and ride about 9 miles to church on a Sunday morning. And she instilled in us the pride, you know, and all of singing gospel songs, and I love to sing gospel songs. I'd like to, this is one that everybody can sing along. Is that okay? Yeah. You mind? Yeah. Fellas, if you please, this is a little thing called Set Your Fields on Fire. There's a call that rings from the one who sings to those now gone astray, saying, come ye men with your load of sin, there at the altar lay. You don't need to heed every chain or creed, your conscience never tired. Be assured, my friend, if you're still in sin, he will set your fields on fire. Everybody, if you don't from sin retire, he will set your fields on fire. You have heard Jesus call, and in death your soul must fall. Now, my friends, if you desire, you may join that heavenly choir and rejoice with him, free from every sin, when he sets your fields on fire. You have heard his voice, seen a soul rejoice, and trusted in his grace. You have blushed with sin as he knocks within, but still you hide your face from the blessed Lord and his own true love, and still you stay retired. It's a downward path when you knock God's wrath. He will set your fields on fire. If you don't from sin retire, he will set your fields on fire. You have heard Jesus call, and in death your soul must fall. Now, my friends, if you desire, you may join that heavenly choir and rejoice with him, free from every sin, when he sets your fields on fire. Well, I've never had a choir like that.
You remember Jimmy Gately and Harold Morrison that used to sing together on the Ozark Jubilee show? Jimmy told me one time that they did that song, He Will Set Your Fields on Fire. Said about 3 days later they got a letter from a lady said, boy, please sing that song again. I love that one called He Will Set Your Fiddles on Fire. You know who was singing louder with you than anybody in the room? This lady right over here, Miss Kitty Wells.
Let me tell you something. I love her.
We all do. Kitty, we need a song from you. We've been sitting here a long time now. We haven't heard, well, we heard Dust on the Bible, but we haven't heard of one of your great country songs.
What about God and Who Made Home?
Absolutely. Here, take
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll see you
Yeah,
later.
right.
Hey, guys.
As I sit here tonight, the jukebox playing the tune about the wild side of life. As I listen to the words you are saying, it brings memories when I was a trusting one. It wasn't all they found me. not true that only you men feel the same. From the start, most every heart that's ever broken was because there always was a man to blame. It wasn't God who made honky tonk angels, as you said in the words of your song. Too many times married men think they're still single. That has caused many a good girl to go wrong. Thank you. Thanks, Sarah, for singing with me.
I didn't know God made honky tonk angels. Whose side are you on, Jim Ed?
You see where I'm sitting right here. You knew I wouldn't get far with that.
Kitty, did you notice when you were singing that all the women stood up and held their hands over their hearts? That's a lot of respect. I know you didn't know when you recorded that you were way ahead of the women's movement.
She started the whole thing.
Well, I tell you what, she sure opened the
We
doors.
salute her for starting the whole thing.
Everybody in country music, she sure opened the doors for all the ladies.
When I came to Nashville, people said, you know, you got that little quiver in your voice. I said, Kitty Wells got it.
One time, this, I guess, this is the first date that I ever worked with Kitty and Johnny. I was sitting on the bus with just Miss Kitty and myself, and I was just nervous being on the bus with her. But she was sitting there playing solitaire, and the promoter crawled up on the bus, and he said, and by the way, you can't be doing any BMI songs. And Kitty never looked up. She just kept playing cards, and she said, well, I don't guess I'll be going on. That poor guy to death.
When I got my first bus, after Harper Valley PTA had been #1, I thought, you know, you got to have a bus. As soon as you have a hit record, you got to have a bus.
Sure you do.
My first one had belonged to Kitty Wells and Johnny Wright. It was beautiful, rolled and pleated inside and everything. And I just felt so wonderful getting to ride down the road in the same bus that Kitty had been in. But I'd be up going up and down the hall, you know, and our driver would turn a corner or something, and I would hit against the wall and be knocked around. I thought, I just somehow can't imagine the Queen of Country Music bouncing around like this in this bus.
Well, she probably didn't, because Johnny was the driver, and Johnny's a pretty darn good driver, and he knew better than to do that.
We had some pretty good drivers.
You know a lady we haven't talked about since we've all been gathered here, and I know there's a million stories about our dear friend Minnie Pearl. Nobody's talked about. Now, Jimmy, you mentioned her a while ago that you flew into plane with cousin Minnie and her husband Henry. You must have a jillion Minnie Pearl stories.
Minnie Pearl was truly my friend because when I first came to the opera, I'd worked in concerts with Mr. Acuff and with Minnie Pearl and Ernest Tubb and so many of my dear friends. I was green at the Grand Ole Opry, you know, and just starting. And I'd do little gags on stage. And Minnie Pearl, when the show was over, she said, you want me to show you how to get a better laugh out of that joke? And take the time to show me, you know, teach me the timing and so forth. And it worked, you know, but what I was always so grateful for was her taking the time to do that.
Yeah.
You know, and
The
that's the kind of
timing
person-
was the key to what she did, because she told the same stories, you know, for years and years, but that timing was just
Yeah.
so incredible.
You know what she always said? If you get a good horse, ride it. That's what she said. And that's what she did with her gags.
Yeah.
Same old stories, year after year, but every time you heard them, they were funny.
The first time I ever saw Minnie was when I was 10 years old in Maryville at a tent show with Roy Acuff. And I'm so thankful that in the last few years that we've had the matinee Grand Ole Opry's on Tuesday and Thursday. Each time we'd be on usually around 3 o'clock or 3:30. And I'd always stay around and wait because Minnie would come out with Roy at 4:30, and Henry was standing backstage telling me what was going to go next, and tell me the stories about how many times they'd been out on the road, and he'd give me all those road stories while I'm trying to listen to what Minnie and Roy's doing. Henry was telling me the road stories, but I'm just so thankful that I'd stayed around. You know, I could have been off doing other things, but I wanted to see Roy and Minnie work together as long as I could, and I'm glad I saw it.
Bill, I got a little story quick about me. There was a lady wrote to me one time and said, it looks like you'd help me out, being that I'm your illegitimate daughter. This is true. And I just ignored it, you know. And a few weeks later, Minnie come up to me and says, Gene, I got a letter from your illegitimate daughter. I said, wait, Minnie, I don't have an illegitimate daughter. She said, well, now, that's nothing to be ashamed of. I said, if I had one, it'd be right with me. But I really don't have an illegitimate daughter. She said, but I never did. I don't think I ever convinced Minnie that I didn't have an illegitimate daughter. This girl was wanting me to send her some money, you know.
I told her I was your...
Yeah. Not in this lifetime, Celia.
In 1960, I will tell you, I came to the Opry and as a guest, and Minnie was on the show. And after I sang the song, I walked over to the side stage she was on, and she said, let me tell you something, Dale. She said, you're going to be a big star in this business. You've got that charisma about you. And do you know, I didn't know what she was talking about. I went all the way back to California, not knowing, was she talking good about me or what's she saying? Well, I got back and asked my wife, I said, what in the world does charisma mean? That's a fact. She told me that. Of course, Minnie was a school teacher, but she said that to me at South Stage in 1960.
She's known to be wrong.
Joe Ellis a microphone back there. Hand Joe a microphone. He's got a Minnie Pearl.
When I met Minnie, Tex Ritter and I were driving from New York to California, just the two of us. Greatest trip I ever took in my life. We were going through Arkansas, and there was a hat show print sign up on a telephone pole. Said Pee Wee King's tent show in Pocahontas, Arkansas. I said, Tex, do you know where Pocahontas is? He's no, but we'll find it. And we went there, and Minnie was on the show. So that's the first time I ever met her. She was a young girl and a wonderful comedian. The next time I saw her, to get close to her, she played Disneyland, and I went down to see her. And I had grown a beard by that time. So up on stage, she says, girls, there's that sweet Joe Allison. Look at that beard. He said, I want you girls to know that it's all right to go through the brush to get to a picnic. And I did one other thing I'll tell you about real quick that she wrote about in her book, and it was written up in newspapers and stuff. It was innocent at the time, but I used to be a commercial artist back in my young days. So one time I was in California, and I decided to send Minnie a Christmas card, and I drew a picture of a hat with a price tag on it and dropped it in the mailbox. And they delivered it to her in Nashville, Tennessee, without any hesitation whatsoever.
That was the only address that was on
That's all, just a hat with a price tag. And the post office delivered it to her in Nashville right away.
That's incredible. Jamie?
I remember.
Yeah, okay, let me see the microscope. I tell you what, I had the privilege of working the last show date, a road date with Minnie in Joliet, Illinois, and it was great, and then later went downhill for her. But my honor of knowing Minnie was the fact that I had the honor of naming her poodles. She wanted some Cajun names. So the last one I named was La Fleur. So I thought I'd throw that in, you know. I played a little part. But she never gave me any advice like some of you guys. I guess she felt sorry for me. Just made it without any advice.
Yeah, Bill, I worked with Minnie, I guess 4 or 5 years in a row on the fair circuit out in the Midwest for half peoples, and got to know her and Henry both very well. Flew with them on the plane a lot, and we had kind of an inside joke between us. I've got 2 favorite Minnie Pearl jokes, and one of them is about Brother taking the cat off, and the cat kept coming back, and then he'd take it a little bit further, and the cat would come back, and finally he had to follow the cat home to find his way back home. So every time I'd see her, I'd say, tell him about the cat, you know, and she would laugh, you know, and many years ago I started, from our friendship, sending her a birthday card.
because I respected her that much. And she would always send me a card back thanking me for the birthday card up until the last year. And I've got them all at home, and I wouldn't take anything for them.
I worked one of the last shows that Minnie worked. It was those Opry shows just before Juliet in Charlotte, North Carolina. She said something to me that really struck me. She was standing there, and Johnny, I think you may have been on. I'm not sure. Tater was on there, and I think it was while you were on the stage, Tater. She was getting ready to go on. They were getting ready to introduce her, and she looked at me and she said, "Do you think we'll ever get over being nervous?" And I'm thinking, Minnie Pearl is nervous before she goes on the stage? But then she said, you know, if you don't get a little nervous, then it doesn't mean as much to you as it should.
Yeah, that's true.
Bill, Jan wanted to say something.
I love Minnie Pearl, of course, as everyone did. But one of my most cherished moments was right after her second cancer surgery. She had the surgery, I think, on Wednesday or something like that. She called me the following Sunday. She was home. And she said, "What are you doing tomorrow about noon?" And I said, "What are we doing?" And she said, "Well, we're having lunch if you'll come and get me." She said, "The doctor said I can't drive, but I can eat." And so I said, "I'll be there." And I went to her home and picked her up. And she showed me all through her home. And I'd been there, but just usually downstairs in the living room, whatever. And she showed me some of her treasures that she had collected through the years and out in the pool house. And it was really a precious time. And then we went to lunch. And I had the privilege of spending 3 hours with Sarah Cannon. Right. She was Sarah that day. And that is one of the most cherished times of my life.
What was the difference between Minnie Pearl and Sarah Cannon?
She was serious, very dignified. And we went to the Belmead Country Club, which was her club. And she was very dignified. And even as Minnie Pearl, she was. But that day, it was just a different persona. It was Minnie was a country girl. She was a classy, sophisticated lady.
Because I worked a show in Charlotte, North Carolina, during her illness, with her, the True Values store. You remember those tours. And for 45 minutes, she went on that stage, and she never pulled one joke in that 45 minutes. She was Sarah Cannon. She talked about Minnie Pearl's life in general, and kept those people spellbound for that entire show.
Well, the thing about her to me was the love that she and Henry had for each other.
A lot of it.
And she told me one time, she said the first time that she went out with Henry, their first date, they went to Roy Acuff's house, or was it a trailer, Oz? Trailer, and they walked in the kitchen, and there was 2 or 3 people down on their knees shooting dice. And Henry looked at Minnie and said, "This is where I want to be." The week that Marty Robbins died, Jimmy Riddle died that week. And Minnie felt real close to Jimmy because she'd worked so much with Acuff and them, and she was really hurting. And I was standing back by the curtain, and she was going on. But she grabbed a hold of me and she said, "I can't do this." She started sobbing. But she went out and she was really funny. She was extremely funny. Then she came off the stage and grabbed me, and I kind of held her there, and while she cried a little bit. And I saw Henry walk in, and he didn't come over. In a few minutes she saw him, and so she left and went over to him. Then a few minutes later, Henry walked over to me and he said, "Thanks for holding my Minnie."
Skeeter, I think, had. And then Dickie.
Well, I was even thinking about what Jean said, Minnie, and her concern, thinking that maybe, what her love for you was one thing, but Minnie did a lot of work at the Florence Crittenden home here for unwed mothers, and she had a great love, and that was never really publicized much. I found that in 1954 when I traveled with her on the RCA Caravan. But I just must tell, as you were talking and sharing about the illness, when breast cancer attacked me in 1988, she came up to me one day on the matinee and she said, "Don't you need me to help you in this?" And I said, "No." I felt like I didn't want to bother her You know, so then a few weeks later, it was another Tuesday matinee, I believe, or Saturday matinee. Anyway, she comes to me again. She kind of took my arm and shook me. She said, "Don't you need me to help you get through this?" So then a couple of days later, I was crying at home, and my father was with me. So he said, "Why don't you call Minnie and see if she can make you feel better?" So I called her, and I continued to call her after that, just about every week. And so when cancer attacked me, and of course I had seen her, and we'd all gone out and sang for her the last Christmas before her passing, but when cancer attacked me now, March in '96, the night that I was there for them to find out what was wrong with me, my family had already left, and then my friend that's a nurse, was staying with me. And so about 8 o'clock, I kind of fell asleep, and my friend Linda said, "Who are you talking to?" And then I said, "Well, I know I have cancer. Cancer has come back on me." And she said, "Don't say that. They're going to find out what's wrong with you. You don't say you have cancer." And I said, "Well, Minnie just told me." And she said, "Oh, Minnie's not in this hospital. She was in another hospital here." And I said, "She just was in this one right now." And she just leaned over my bed, and she said what I had, and she said, "I was there for you then, and I'll be here now." And so we didn't have the TV on because I had told Linda, I said, "Is it okay if we don't have the TV on? I don't want to hear about 10 murders and 15 rapes and all this stuff tonight as I lay here and wonder what's going on with me with this pain." And she said, "No." So I didn't have the TV on when that happened, or through the night. And when the nurse came in the morning, she said, "Does Miss Davis know that Sarah died?" And I had my eyes closed. And Linda just gulped and everything, you know, and said it. So when the doctors came in to me, I told them what I had. And I said, "Don't think I'm crazy or loony." And I know there's some people that might question that, but I know it as sure as I'm sitting here. And then when they took me home from the hospital, her funeral was just like within sight of my home. So I heard the bells ringing. She put the steeple on that church. I was there the day they put the steeple on her church in Brentwood. I live close there. I heard the bells. And she's here for me today as I battle cancer, just in this form. It's so great to hear those stories. And to go from 1954, hearing her sing, "How to Catch a Man, How to Catch a Man," and then to know that she's with me so much in spirit as I battle this, and just in these stories, it's so great. I just had to say something about that.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Bill, can I say one thing? Skeeter Davis, of course, is battling cancer, as Minnie Pearl did. And Skeeter Davis and Minnie Pearl have been there for me a couple of times when I have had friends that needed uplifting and everything, and they made calls to these. And this is what all these people right here are about. We love one another, and I think it comes through and it shows.
I think the operative word maybe when we're talking about Minnie is unselfish.
Yes.
My goodness, must not have been a selfish bone in her body.
My mother had open heart surgery, and she was in the same hospital with Minnie when she was having one of her trips to the hospital. And she thought about my mother all the time and sent Henry down every day to check on her and see how she was doing, even at a time when she was going through a lot of suffering.
I think we need some music. Johnny, why don't you sing one for us?
Yeah, Johnny. Yeah, I don't know what I'm saying.
How about the one you rehearsed?
Boy, did that get you? Nah, I don't want to do that one. I want to do the other one I rehearsed.
Well, let's
Why don't you do act naturally?
Why don't you do that
okay, we didn't rehearse
Buck
that.
Owens song?
Let's do that. I saw they had Buck on the line. I saw that. So it's in D. Can we just vamp and I'll jump in there somewhere? Well, they're gonna put me in the movie. They're gonna make a big star out of me. We'll make a film about a man that's sad and lonely. And all I gotta do is act naturally. Well, I bet you I'm gonna be a big star. I might win an Oscar, you can't never tell. Well, the movies are gonna make me a big star, 'cause I can play the part so very well. I hope you come to see me in the movies, for then I know that you will plainly see the biggest fool that's ever hit the big time.
And all I gotta do is act naturally. 2, 3, 4. All I gotta do is act naturally.
You know, I think we ought to say at this point, when we're talking about our friends that we've known over the years and all, that while we've taken time to mourn their passing, but every day, and especially when we get together, we celebrate their lives, celebrate what they brought into our lives. We haven't mentioned a guy that I know, Justin, that so many people in this room knew so well. Such a wonderful guy, such a quick wit and such a talent, our buddy Roger Miller. I bet we could tell Roger Miller stories from now till the cows come home. He was at a guitar pull one time where they were just passing the guitars around and singing, and he was on a roll. He was singing one of his hits right after another, and boy, the crowd was just getting into it. Every song was a little better than the one before. Roger stopped after about 4 songs, and he hit a chord on his guitar. He said, "Now here's a little song I wrote while I was singing that last one."
Hey, Bill, this is a little piece of history I'll share with you. It was in Boise, Idaho, and Marvin Rainwater and Roger Miller was on the tour, and myself and Mel Tillis. And it was, Roger had 2 big hits, and man, he was so excited, and we was all happy for him. So Roger told me, he said, "Merle, let's rent a big suite. It has a big living room, and we'll have the bedrooms to each side. And we'll have some fun tonight." Well, this disc jockey, who I had met several times, he said, "Merle, can I roar with you guys?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. You know, Roger's kind of funny, man. You know, if you ask him a lot of questions, you know, being a disc jockey and want to do liners and interviews, I swear I'll just sit in the corner and I'll be nice." And I said, "Okay." So Marvin and I had an assignment to write a song for Carl Smith, because Carl says, "Merle, I swear," he turned down about 50 of my songs, and he says, "I'm going to record whatever you send me. I will record it on the next session." So Marvin and I came up with this song called "Why Can't You Feel Sorry for Me?" And we were so excited writing it, and Roger kept opening the door and said, "Listen, I'm working on something." I said, "Could you excuse us a minute, Raj? Marvin and I are writing a smash here. Why can't you feel sorry for me?" He said, "Listen to this thing I got. Trailers for sale around, da-da-da-da, 50 cents. I said, "I don't like trailers. Like a house." He said, "Oh, I'm sorry." He went back in his bedroom and started writing. So Marvin and I finished up the song, and Roger came back out, and he gave us a few more lines of "King of the Road." And the disc jockey that was sitting there was Boxcar Willie.
Oh, wow. What a story. T. Thomas.
Bill, talking about Mel in one of those stories that Merle was talking about. You know, of course, that before he became a songwriter, he was a salesman, door-to-door salesman, and he became, don't remember what Bible company he worked for, but he was selling Bibles. and Johnny Russell knows this story better than anybody and should tell it about Mel being such a successful Bible seller.
Does it take that long?
Would you wait and see? Give John the microphone there, Elbert.
Well, I asked Mel one time, we were talking about how we made money to come to Nashville, and he told me that he sold Bibles. And I said, "Well, how many did you sell?" And he said, "Well, 368. And I said, "Well, how long did it take you?" He said, "A day." I said, "Well, how do you sell that many Bibles in a day?" He said, "Well, I will walk up to a door and say, I'm Mel Tillich, and I'm selling Bibles. Would you like for me to sell you one, or would you prefer I read it to you?" One time, talking about Roger Miller, one time I was in Branson, and Roger called me, and we were talking, and he said, "Well, Mary and I are fixing to go eat lunch and take the kids. You want to go with us?" And I said, "Well, I'm not ready, Roger." He said, "Well, if you get ready, we're going." And he told me where they were going. I didn't go because I went back to sleep. A year later, almost to the day, I'm back in Branson and he's there. My phone rings and I pick it up and Roger said, "You ready yet?"
Well, this was after Roger had made it, and he was in the Brown Derby in L.A. one night, and Frank Sinatra was in there. And Roger had this girl in there with him, and so he goes over to Frank's table, and he introduces himself to him. He says, like, "Mr. Sinatra, I'm Roger." He says, "Yeah, Roger, I know who you are." He said, "Well, listen," he said, "would you do me a great favor?" He said, "This would be the coolest thing I've ever done." He said, "What's that?" He said, "I've got this girl in here tonight I'm really trying to impress." He said, "Is there any chance you would just come by the table and say, 'Hi, Roger,' like we're old buddies?" He said, "Sure, I'll do that." So Roger goes back to the table with this girl, and a little while later, Sinatra comes over to his table and says, "Hey, Roger, how you doing?" And Roger says, "Not now, Frank, I'm busy."
Well, I got to know Roger here before he ever made it really big, and so we'd become kind of buddies. And it may seem unbelievable now, but there was a time Nashville didn't have really good string sections. So I'd cut tracks here and go out to L.A. and put strings on. And Gene Autry owned the Continental Hotel, and that's where most of the music people stayed. And I'd been out there about a week and had finished all my sessions and had a flight booked the next morning early back to Nashville. And I was just going to rest that evening and get up early. The phone rang, and it's Roger. He said, "Welcome to Hollywood." Yeah. He said, "I've got an idea. I've got to come over." I said, "Okay." So he came over, and he said, there's money in records. I know that now. I'm getting royalty checks. But there's more money in commercials. You get residuals. It just keeps on going." He said, "Somebody wrote that Pepsi commercials and made millions of dollars. Let's write a hit commercial." I said, "Well, what do you want to write it about?" He said, "Oh, we got to have a big company." So we settled on Ford. So we stayed up all night. And I'm really tired now. And he's not seemingly tired. He gets a little artificial stimulation. So about daylight, I said, "I've got to cancel my flight or something here." He said, "Well, cancel it." "I've got a phone here in my briefcase," he says, "the first portable phone I'd ever seen. Call the airlines, canceled." He said, "Here, take a couple of these. This will, keep you awake a while." So by about 3 o'clock that afternoon, I don't know how many he'd given me. He'd say, "What color do you want now?" I don't know. So we were up all that night. Sometime the next day, I said, "What are we doing?" He said, "We're writing a hit commercial." And I said, "What about?" He said, "Ford. But let's hurry up and finish this thing, because I'm getting tired of it." And we used paper everywhere on the floor of the hotel room. So I said, "Lord, give me a line." And I said, F-O-U-R-D. He said, "What's that?" I said, "That's you and a Ford." "We've done it. It's a hit. I'm calling J. Walter Thompson." And he tried to get him on the phone and everything. And then he get sidetracked, and he said, "You like Willie Nelson, don't you?" I said, "Well, yeah, Willie's great." "Yeah, well, Willie flushes to the beat of a different plumber." And he just he just one line you to that. It was great.
Roger went up behind Ronnie Millsap and put his hands over his ears and said, "Guess who?" He was stopped by a traffic cop, and the cop says, "Can I see your license?" And Roger says, "Can I shoot your gun?" True story. True story. If I ever told the truth of my life. I lived in Studio City, and Roger called me. He was already popular by now. He said, "I want you to go to the dentist with me." I said, "Okay." And he came over. He had a brand new Rolls-Royce convertible with the top down. He says, "Get in." Smelled new. Drove out to the Van Nuys Airport, out onto the tarmac. We got out and got onto a Learjet. We took off, and 20 minutes later, we landed in Las Vegas. Meeting the plane was a limousine about a quarter of a mile long. Drove us down to the Sahara Hotel, where there were 2 suites waiting, already booked. So he said, "Going up to the suite, I'll be back in a minute." So in about a half an hour, he came back, and his dentist was in Las Vegas. And he had chipped his tooth, and it took him about a half hour to fix it, and he came back. He said, "Well, we're here. What do you want to do?" I said, "Roger, tomorrow I have a radio show. I don't have a toothbrush. I don't have any money. I have to go to work. I want to go home. He said, okay. We got back in the limousine, drove back to the airport. We got on the Learjet and flew back to Van Nuys Airport. We got into the Rolls-Royce convertible. He drove me up to my front door, and as I got out, he said, thanks for going to the dentist with me.
Justin Tubb, you wrote some songs with Roger. Y'all wrote a big hit together.
Yeah, we wrote several songs together. I guess the one that most people know was Johnny Wright did the first record on it back in 1964. And then nothing happened for about 25 years, and Highway 101 recorded it. Called Walking, Talking, Crying, Barely Beating, Broken Heart. Yeah. But Roger and I spent a lot of time together back in the early days. We both came to Tree about the same time as writers, and we even shared a house for a couple of weeks one time when our wives kicked us both out at the same time. But I was at a guitar pull one time at Dottie West's house out in Inglewood. She and Bill lived out there then, and I thought Hank Cochran was there, and Harlan Howard, and me, and Dottie, and maybe Patsy Cline was even there. I'm not sure. But Roger was supposed to have come, and he wasn't there yet. And pretty soon, the phone rang, and Roger said, hey, I'm running late, but I'll be there as quick as I can. And we hung up the phone. About that time, the doorbell rang, or a knock on the door, and we opened up, and there he was. And he had that phone you were talking about in that briefcase. And that was the first one I'd ever seen. He was out on the front porch when he called. But when I went to the memorial that they had for Roger at the Ryman after he passed away, Marty Stewart said something and hit the nail right on the head. Roger's wit and his mind worked so fast that sometimes it got ahead of him. And if you remember, every time Roger would say something funny, he would laugh harder than anybody. And Marty said he is sure that the reason for that is that his mind worked so fast, he didn't know what he was going to say until it was already out, and then that was the first time that he'd heard, you know, and he laughed as hard as anybody.
Dickens has got a great one, too. We were doing a guitar pull similar to what we're doing right now. One time, it was a tribute to Sue Brewer. Everybody knew Sue. She was a friend of everybody in country music. And Willie was there, and Merle Kilgore, and Webb Pierce, and Waylon Jennings. And everybody would take the guitar and sing one verse and chorus of a song that Sue liked of theirs. And everybody did their thing, and then they handed me the guitar, and I sang verse and chorus of Take Me As I Am or Let Me Go. And everybody clapped their hands and, oh, well, that was good. And everything got real quiet, and Roger said, boy, I wish I'd have been here. I might have enjoyed that. I was putting up, he used to live 2 doors from me in East Nashville. And one day I was in the yard putting up a swing set for my little girl. And he pulled up in the driveway and got out and said, how you doing? I said, oh, this thing's driving me crazy. I said, I put a bolt in here, and 10 minutes later I find out it's going over here somewhere. I'm about to go crazy. He said, you know what your problem is? I said, no, what? He said, you're standing too close to it. You're getting the feedback.
I love what he told Johnny Cash that time. He said, don't ever put your pills and your change in the same pocket. He said, I just swallowed 35 cents. Justin, we need a song out of you. You have a song. You're a great songwriter. Do the one that Hawkshaw did that was such a big song.
Yeah, seeing Gene here reminds me, we were on a tour together I think we were in East Peoria, Illinois, playing a show. And we were sitting in the dressing room, and I sang this song. I gave it to Gene.
And I recorded it.
Yeah. I still think it's a girl song, because when a husband and wife break up, it's usually the guy that has to leave, and the wife stays home and keeps the house and the furniture. And
I recorded the song, and Ken Nelson, it laid in the can for a year or so, and Hawkshaw told me, said, if you're not going to record, if they're not going to release that Justin Tubb song, he said, I'm going to record it. So he recorded it.
Just call Lonesome 77203. Had our number changed to
day, although I hated to. But each time the phone would ring, they'd want to speak to you. And it hurts to tell them you're not here with me. Maybe now old telephone will let me be. It's not in the book now, so you better write it down. Just in case your love for me should ever come around, you might want to call and break the news to me. Just call lonesome 77203. The telephone beside me all the time, hoping you might want to call and say you've changed your mind. If you do, then darling, you know where I'll be. I'm at lonesome 77203. You're the only one I'm giving my new number to. So now, if the telephone should ring, I'll know it's you. And if you ever long for love that used to be, just call lonesome 77203. I'm at lonesome 77203.
Great song. Jan Howard, we haven't heard a song out of you. As many songs as you know and as many songs as you've recorded over the years.
Well, okay.
Some of those
I'll do that. If I can stand up.
Sure.
I can sing some of those demos. Now, you want to do Evil?
Sure.
All right. There's a little story behind Evil. Evil on your mind.
Tell us
What's
about
this?
it.
Which story you going to tell? No, really. No, Harlan and I were married at the time, and every time he would want to go Harlan who? No. We're going to be nice today. Every time he'd want to go fishing or somewhere for about 10 days, he'd call our friend Hubert Long, who was our booking agent, and he'd get Hubert to book me on the road. So, you know, every time Hubert calls, Jan, I got 10 days up here somewhere. I knew Harlan was going somewhere, fishing or somewhere. But also, he was crazy about Susan Hayward in the movies. He went on and on about Susan Hayward. So I said, well, you're not the only one that fantasizes about something. You pick Susan Hayward, and I'm in every one of those John Wayne movies. So actually, that's kind of the way the story, Evil on Your Mind, went, and Harlan Howard wrote it. So if y'all will kick it off in the key of G, I think I can. You say I need a rest, why don't I go and see my sister way out west? That's very thoughtful of you, dear, and I'm really touched with all this tenderness. But us women are suspicious things, and we know that men aren't born with wings. What's making you so kind? Now, I'm not smart, but I'm not blind, and I think that you've got evil on your mind. Do you think that you've been good about as long as most red-blooded men could? We've been together for so long, I know another pasture's looking good. But don't think that other men don't look at me that certain way from time to time. Don't think that you're the only one that must contend with evil on your mind. I thank you for the flowers and the candy, honey, that was very kind. Oh, that's your way of telling me you're sorry for the evil on your mind. Yeah, that's your way of telling me you're sorry for the evil on your mind. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Jack Green was playing guitar and going along. Back in 1967, Jack Green, you won every award that year except Female Vocalist of the Year, didn't you?
It was a good year.
It sure was. Go back to 67. Do one of those great songs.
Okay, let's do the one that, this is the first year of the CMA Awards. They just started doing them that year. And the song, Dallas Frazier wrote the song, it won Song of the Year. And it got single, it's got album, and I got male vocalist. There goes my only possession. There goes my everything. I hear footsteps slowly walking as they gently walk across a lonely floor, and a voice is softly saying, darling, this will be goodbye forevermore. There goes my reason for living. There goes the one of my dreams. There goes my only possession. There goes my everything. I remember my days in darkness with no sunshine or light to lead my way. Then a whisper from his voice softly called me to the arms of my Savior to stay. And he is my reason for living. He is the King of all kings. I long to be his possession. He is my everything. He is my reason for living. He is my
So pretty. I love that last verse and the way you changed that around. That's very, very nice.
I wish I could take credit for that. Dallas Frazier did that when he became a preacher and changed the words to it, and I get a lot of requests for that.
If you've ever had a dream come true, then you know exactly how I feel right now. I dreamed of 2 days with some of the pioneers of country music. 2 days to sing their signature songs. 2 days to tell stories on each other. 2 days to laugh together. 2 days to remember. 2 days to reminisce about the golden days of country music. The days when your favorite stars loaded into station wagons to make that trek across the country to play for you, their fans. Sometimes they'd be at the high school gym, sometimes at the National Guard Armory or the fairground, but they would always come and they would always entertain. Today, you've seen a part of that dream. This is one of a 4-volume set. I hope you've had the opportunity to see them all. I also would love to hear your comments. My address is on the back of the video box. But if you'll grab something to write with, I'll give it to you while we're wrapping this up. It's Larry Black, The Caleb Group. Post Office Box 210483, Nashville, Tennessee 37221. Let me know if you think we should do some more of these. Let me know if you enjoyed these pioneers of country music. And if perchance this is your first opportunity to see one of this 4-volume set of Country's Family Reunion, contact me at the address given earlier so I can let you know how to get all 4 volumes. Thanks for joining us. I hope you've had as much fun watching as we've had doing it. God bless you.